All right, guys, so this is the Zoom meeting review for population. First off, what is it? Everybody knows it's population equals people in an area. All right, so you can have the population of a country, you can have the population of a city, you can have the population in a mall, you can have the people within the area measured within any area, with any square foot, within any square mileage, and that's giving you population, right? And then you can find density, right? And then you have population density, which is number of people per square, and then you can have it be anything, right? You can have the number of people per square foot, the number of people per square mile, the number of people per square meter. You can go over the sea, over the ocean, and look at per square kilometer, right? It's basically just getting into density, right? And this you'll find on the population density slides, all right? Which if you're looking at today's Canvas, it's going to be, I believe it's the first one, all right? And there's three types of population density, all right? There's arithmetic, all right, which is purely going to be total number of people versus the total land area. Okay, so it's looking at how much land a country has, how much land the whole country has, divided by how many people are in it. All right, so in general, large countries have a low population density, small countries have a higher population density in general. But then you can actually see there's a map on the population density site. I can't get it to work on the computer I'm zooming on, but it actually goes into how highest populations are going to, or highest population densities are usually in Western Europe, South Asia, and then East Asia, like some Western Europe ones, Italy, Germany, the UK, South Asia, India, Pakistan, Vietnam, the Philippines, East Asia, Japan, and both Koreas have very high population densities. Okay, and remember, this is density, not distribution. So it's the number of people per square unit of measurement. All right, and that's arithmetic when it's just for people divided by land. All right, and then you get the next one. All right, oops, which is going to be, that's not what I wanted. Thank you. Okay. Physiological, which this one is the one that's the hardest to spell, but it's also the one that people seem to mess up. It's total number of people over farmland. Okay, people over farmland, which is very, very important, because if you have too many people for your farmland, you're going to have a problem when it comes to exceeding your carrying capacity. Okay, so carrying capacity, we learned about that. Basically, how much food can the land provide and feed how many people? Okay, there we go. Trying to get these. There we go. All right, and then the last one is similar to physiological, but it's agricultural. I don't know why I tried to spell that wrong. Okay, and that's, who just duded in? Yeah, just mute your mic, Sebastian. Always mute your mic. I actually just muted it for you. Okay. The last one is agricultural, which is equal to farmers over farmland. Okay. So, guys, real quick in the chat, between physiological and cultural, physiological, people over farmland, cultural, farmers over farmland, between these two numbers, which one would be the better indicator that a country has high technology, a lot of good technology? Would it be a high physiological density or a high agricultural density? Sorry, low physiological density or a low agricultural density? What do you guys think? Just type it in chat. Yep, that's correct, Benito. And the reason between Benito put in chat, low agricultural density means a higher level of development. The reason for that, if you have low agricultural density, you have very few farmers for how much farmland you have. So each farmer is working a very, very large farm. That would be really easy to do in a place like America, where you have huge, huge tractors that can work massive farms very easily, right? If you have a huge amount of farmers for the farmland, like much, much higher, where each farmer is only growing like a few acres at a time, basically they don't have advanced technology to allow each farmer to farm a huge plot. It's one farmer doing the work for one small piece of land. And if the internet was working correctly, I could show you the picture of high agricultural density in Indonesia, where it's one guy with two cows working a very small farm, versus low agricultural density in Canada, where it's like 4 guys and tractors working a massive, huge, huge farm that is hundreds of times larger than the farm in Indonesia. Okay. Oops. There we go. You don't have to leave, Sebastian. Where you at? All right, here. Let me go tell him that he can come back. All right. So that's really getting into the types of population density. Arithmetic, and then you have physiological, and then you have agricultural. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we will go into population distribution, right? So we did population. This is all density right here, right? And I try to make it easy for you guys. Population, people in an area, density, number of people per square, whatever you're going to use, right? And then arithmetic is the people per square amount of land. Physiological is all of the people to the farmland. Agricultural, specifically farmers to farmland. So that's density, okay? Now we're going to flip it, and I'm going to erase all this, all right? And we're going to go into distribution, okay? Distribution. And remember, this one is where we got into like the major distribution. Okay. And distribution is really important because it basically tells us where in the world people are, and people are super important from this class, or super important to this class. If you haven't figured it out, this is AP Human Geography, right? Human Geography. So distribution, okay? Big thing. Oh, more people alive today than at any other point in time, where population is increasing at a fast rate than ever before, and most population growth happens in less developed countries. Always keep that in mind. Go through and watch the Hans Rosling video where he's moving the dots up the graph and moving things and progressing things. It's always a really good review. Okay, so remember, sorry, there we go. So where do people live? 75% of the population of the planet lives on 5% of the land. Okay, so 75% of the population is on only 5% of the land. So really, we're packed together. Most places on the planet are very packed together. Okay, we got to think about like what physical factors would cause this to happen. Basically, you're going to need to get around fresh water. You're going to need to get around food sources, and you're going to want to be around areas of easy travel. So even if you had fresh water and great food in the mountains, if it's not easy travel, people aren't going to move there. People aren't going to stay there. Okay. And this whole area, right? That 5% of the land, that's the ecumene. All right, ecumene. remember, let me get that a little bit better. Ecumene is where people live, okay? And it's changed over time. A long time ago, there was no people living in America because that's not where our species originated. So eventually people got there, and the ecumene, where people were living, expanded to also take in North America. Okay, there we go. Population distribution. Okay, where do we have essentially areas of 1 billion? Okay, there are 7 areas of 1 billion. No, it's only like 75% of our population is on 5% of land. Remember, cities are super condensed, all right, compared to every rural area. Like it is a crazy amount. Even areas or even countries with large populations like India and China, they still have the majority of their population in cities. Okay, so it's really cutting down on the amount of land. All right. Also, like even if you're in a place where the population is very is distributed very widely, right, and everybody has a lot more space between each person, they're still only taking up like the land that they actually live on, not work if they're like a ranch or a farm or something like that. The land that they actually live on is very small. Okay, that's what's going on with that. But yeah, so areas of 1 billion people, you've got number 1. Okay, that is going to be Eastern Asia. Okay, and you guys should have like a foldout with this, the population from the population distribution notes. That's like East Asia, which is basically just gonna be a sliver of China, North Korea, and South Korea and Japan. All right, and then it's going to be Central Asia, and these are not in any particular order. I'm just trying to do it easy. Central Asia, which is going to be like the rest of China. You got Mongolia, Kazakhstan, a piece of India, a piece of Pakistan, right? Southern India, the southern portion of India, Bangladesh. All right, South Asia, okay, and then you've also got Southeast Asia. All right, Southeast Asia. That's going to be. I'm trying to get this where you guys can actually see it. Didn't work out. That's really southern China, Laos, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia. That's all that. All right. And then you've got all of Africa. All right. And then you've got all of Europe. Oops. This is going to be Europe and the Middle East. And Russia. All right. And then 7 is North America, South America, and Australia. All right. So that's very poorly written, but there's a great map to show all you that basically you have to understand that Asia as a continent has more people than 4 continents combined, right? Asia by itself has more people than Australia, South America, North America, and Europe all combined. That's how many people live in Asia. It's a huge amount, all right? That's really what you need to know. Why isn't Canvas working? It's because there's probably something going on with updates or things like that. There's also teachers have grades due today, so it's probably a lot of teachers all on at the same time trying to export, trying to get Canvas to do things for them. I woke up at 5 today to take care of that. All right. As far as the distribution, like by longitudes, right? Like where are you at on the Earth as far as like how far east are you, how far west are you, right? We find that most, if this is the 2 sides of the planet, most people end up in, this should be over here, in Asia, right? Huge amounts of people in Asia, like I was saying. And then as far as if we're going this way, right? If this is the whole planet and the equator is like right in the center, it's actually the equator up has the most people. Okay, so it's really the tropic north. So it'd be like the top quarter of the planet, or sorry, the top third of the planet has the most people. Okay, or not top third. The dividing line between top third down, it's like right there. Okay, and then we're gonna keep going. All right, China and India have the two largest populations. All right, fastest growing populations are going to be the poorer areas, less developed countries, Asia, Africa. Why is this the case, guys? Remember, we talked about DTM before. It's going to be the fact that there's lag, right? People are still having 8 kids because they want 2 to survive, but 7 of those kids are now surviving due to modern medicine. So population is shooting through the roof in many places. All right. There we go. There's more specific information. Okay. Yep, we're all good. Okay. Scale of increase, super important. Let me bring that up. Basically, you need to be talking, whenever you're talking about population, you need to make sure you're specifically focusing on global, the entire planet, or you're talking about international, like continental, like the whole continent or an international area. Are you talking about national, like a single country, or are you talking about local? You could also talk about regional. All right. Currently, there's a global trend to where population is going to hopefully hit around 9 billion and stabilize. Could also not stabilize. We don't really know. And then there's certain areas like Europe actually has population decline to where they are getting smaller and smaller as the years go. All right. And then we can go to another good thing we need to go over is population pyramids. All right, basically, let me get this out. There we go. Population pyramids. All right. Okay. Population pyramids. All right, very useful tool to study population. They tell you age. Remember, age runs along here. And then the sex of the population runs down here. And I always got to remember this. I'm always very bad at this. I believe it is, whoops, there's a great video to watch about it on Canvas. All right. And you always need to remember that left is the male population and right is the female population. Okay. And all sorts of things can impact this, right? You can see how there's definitely a population dip right here, right? What could have happened when these people were young? Anybody can answer this in chat. I'll give you guys a couple minutes. Yeah, Daniel cited an infectious disease hitting the population and killing people that are specifically young. Yeah, it wouldn't be the one that he spoke about because it's not adversely hitting these children, right? Because I said when these guys were young, okay? But the reason this cohort might be smaller, right? And remember, that's what we call those divided areas in the population pyramid are going to be cohorts because these are the age brackets, okay? It could be because of an infectious disease, or it could be a war or an invasion. Thank you, Caleb. Mass murder, genocide, potentially, yeah, depending if we're talking about a population or a specific country. There's also the fact that, hey, you know what? War could be happening, and so there's no one having kids, or there's less people having kids during this time. Remember, there can also be economic and political things. If you've got a really bad political environment, people are actually less likely to have kids. If you've got a really bad economic environment, people are less likely to have kids. Okay. And then you can also have it to remember, you can always, how big the graph is. It can either be a percentage to where it's like, oh, maybe the highest percentage is only getting up to actually 8% of the population, right? Or it could actually say we're like, no, this is 800,000 people. Okay. It can either be a potentially, Nick, but usually it's actually pretty small compared to the I got you, Aaron. You're all muted now. All right. So usually it's on a country scale, but you can actually see it for all sorts of things. You can see it for counties, you can see it for cities, you can see it for schools. You can look up a lot of this stuff for a different, just whatever different populations you have, right? And remember, we have different shapes, right? You've got the expanding population, which looks like this. And guys, what is really high in this case? What's going to be really high? This is called the expanding population. Okay, what's going to be high? No, not abortion. Abortion doesn't necessarily have to be high. It can be high if you're in a if people are in a country and they don't want to have the children that they're conceiving. All right. What would be high in this case? Looks like we've got a lot of people in the lowest age cohort, right? Birth rates, very good, Benito. Birth rates are going to be high. Okay. Now, at the same time, what else is also high? Remember, as these kids get older, they are less and less and less and less likely to reach the top of the pyramid because smaller amounts of their population. So there you go. Daniel and Benito both got it. Death rates are going to be high as well. Basically, people are having a huge amount of kids, right? But also, people are dying really early. Okay. So we're gonna keep going. There's also the stationary pyramid. That's where it's something like this, right? And basically they're kind of, it's generally kids will grow up to be adults, okay? So pretty much it's stable growth. It might be a little bit of extra growth going on. Maybe things change and like it used to be really bad to be in that country, but hey, things are starting to get better. Your population growth might go up a little bit, but hey, look at that. Pretty much everybody's living to be an adult and living into their old age. That's going to be a stationary pyramid. All right. And then it's more rectangular. Pretty much all the groups are going to be pretty similar in size. All right. And then you have a contractive. Okay. That's where, hey, it used to be great, but now it's actually going down a little bit. Okay. And guys, what is dropping in this country? What's dropping in this country? Yep, perfect, Anaya. Birth rates. Birth rates are going down, which is causing less kids to be in that low age bracket. Okay. But then what if we've got something like this? All right. We've got a pretty stationary pyramid, except we got a big chunk out of the population right here, while this side is doing okay. So guys, what kind of population is on the left? Men. All right, and Benito jumped ahead. What would cause this big amount of men to suddenly die in one specific age group? That could be war. Okay, that could be war. All right, because basically you've got this chunk right here missing. Okay, so that meant that there was a war and suddenly all those men died. Okay, all right, so you can see the impact of war. We're also going to see what happens after a war. Usually it didn't happen in this country, but what usually happens after a war finishes? Guys, what do you call it when suddenly you have a bunch more kids? Baby boom, very good. Oh yeah, Caleb brought up another thing. This gap could also be from people potentially moving out of a country to go work in another country, which can happen. But usually you actually see it in the opposite, where suddenly in a very specific, in some countries, right, you'll see it where it's like, oh yeah, super stable birth rates or super stable population pyramid, right? Everything looks same, except there's like one bracket of like 8 years of men with a huge population compared to the rest of the pyramid. This is because this right here would be guest workers. Okay, that extra bit would be guest workers. Okay, so there you go. It looks like a bird. Right, it looks like a head of a bird, not a beak of a bird. All right, so there can be a bunch of things that cause these anomalies. You can have if a small city includes a large university, you could suddenly have it to where like the age of people attending university in that town swells. So like the 8 years that people could go to university between getting their undergraduate and their doctors or their PhD could swell in an area. You can also have if like school funding is not doing well, you could have it to where suddenly people are moving out of the area. There's a bunch of reasons for things to happen. There can be it's not a good place for work, so old people stay in the area because they've already retired, but young people are going to move out more and more. You've got maybe a retirement community where like pretty much everybody, that would look super weird, right? Because it'd be like this, right? To where there's no one on the bottom end, very, 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 very few people on the bottom end, but then suddenly you hit this retirement age and the population shoots up. Okay, huge amount. All right. You can also have, oil booms can attract people of a certain age range or a certain sex. You can also have it to where like, hey, what if there's a college or a university that only accepts women? It's a women's college or a women's university. Or if there's a military base nearby, there's a bunch of things that can cause populations to change in relation to each other. All right. And then remember, we need to finish out with dependency ratio. Okay. You guys in general know this. Very few of y'all got this wrong on the final last semester, but basically what people didn't do well on it was the actual numbers. So here's the breakdown. It's 0 to 15 non-workers, right? 0 to 15s are non-workers. 15 to 64 working. 65 plus, right? That's going to be non-working. Okay. So you got to get those numbers down in your head. Or sorry, that should actually say 64, not 65. That should be 64 plus. Okay? So it's 0 to 15 plus 64 plus divided by, who do I divide it by, guys? Our working age, all right, which is going to be 15 to 64. Got it? And that'll give you your dependency ratio. Very good. All right. Yeah, the working class. Okay. If you have an aging population, so this number keeps getting higher and this number gets a little bit smaller, but people are aging out of this range repeatedly, you'll have a graying population. Okay. Basically, people live longer. People need more money from the government over time. People put more stress on the healthcare system. There's going to be a greater demand for resources and infrastructure. All right. It can lead to people an actual economic depression in some cases, and people having less children, which lowers the amount of people who are going to be coming into the workforce in the next 15 years. So, yeah, it's all over the place. Okay. All right. I want y'all to just go through the review pages I've done for today, and then that's it. All right. I'm going to keep this open for a bit longer. But everyone who's just watching this video online, thanks for tuning in. All right. Hope this helps.